nice compliments how you manage with my first and last name.
It's my real job.
Yeah, you did it super well. Today we're going to talk about modular content, and I present the company which is called Viseven. I've been 9 years with the company, and this is pretty much my last public appearance before I go on maternity leave. Yeah, I will have to someday. But yeah. I'm gonna struggle a little bit, but yeah. So we've been evolving from like an agency, like a boutique agency, then to a marketing technology provider. We've seen the industry grow from like adopting something like closed-loop marketing tools, authoring tools, and now we are in a modular content world. And today, I will present you a roadmap of how to adopt modular content, or at least make some initial steps into the modular content. So why this is all important? So I think at some point of time, modular content became one of those buzzwords like omnichannel, data, and back in the days like closed-loop marketing. But it has a purpose actually. So personalization became our new norm. We are spoiled by the experience of Amazon and YouTube and all of that, we all know. We cannot also afford creating one-off use content. It's just getting crazy expensive. And the need to track and identify what's worth doing next is a must-do. So modular content, as we see, is one of the solutions that could help to address some of the challenges that we personally see in our daily life. So the decentralization of content production. Every day, pretty much, a new channel emerges. So we got like chat, I'm afraid to pronounce that word. We have email, banners, all like emerging in new contents. And every vendor and every solution provider has its own way of doing things. So that creates a lot of a mess, challenges, and we have to address that. With the new channels and the personalization that is so important, that means that we need a lot more content than we used to need before. So every customer journey needs something personalized to make sure that it resonates well. So the process of review and approval, and actually this whole relates to like the general agility that's expected from everybody. Because in the inbox of the client, we all compete not with like pharma against pharma. We compete against eBay and Amazon and everybody. So that means that the content has to go out much faster than it used to before. And one of the solutions to address that is modular content. From the journey, what we see, there are like a couple of steps. So we can like jump ahead and start somewhere in the middle, like let's say not going like super foundational, but start with mature, or but we cannot jump to like absolute automation overnight. And we've sort of identified that path as like crawl, walk, run, and we identified like those steps. For example, like something where we are, where we're just starting like our steps in digital. It's like evolving content, evolving digital. Then we talk about some structure, because with growing capacities of the content that is in marketing and brand and medical and commercial teams. So we need to kind of bring some standard and structure to that, otherwise it becomes like unmanageable. So afterwards, we talk about modular as a way to optimize. And after, we talk about like automation and transformation of the journey. So I will start with this. Oh, I knew I'll mess it up. We start with the content journey of like this foundational step where we talk about structure, and there is also a way to get there because there is like some effort that companies do. So first, there are like pretty much 4 steps to be, as we see from our experience, to be like absolutely great about standardizing the content and standardizing the approach. So first, that I personally think that cannot be skipped is the digital asset management system. So there has to be some space where we store, tag, organize, and retire content. And this could be like a DAM, and there are multiple vendors to do that. We all know them. It's like Viva Vault, it is Adobe, it is a Primo, pretty much different vendors, but they all fit the purpose. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a little bit out of breath, but bear with me for a little.
10 years.
No, thank you.
So,
Good. So yeah, so the DAM is like the step 1 in the journey. After that, what we do? We get our claims and components library as a way of like getting little items or little bricks before we're building our house or we're constructing something. So this all as a foundation, which is then tagged and organized properly, will be something that we will be reusing while in the future we'll be building content. But even if we are before the modular content, how do we know what exists in our DAM? How do we find it? How we reuse that? And so getting that all together will help us go to the next step. And so the step 3 is actually, we name it like bringing this standard. And we've identified a couple of pieces that definitely are worth standardizing. So standardizing the content, the agency operation, data, and technology in general. So I'll talk a little bit more on each of that. So standardizing the content. And sometimes when we bring up the topic, everybody's like, oh no, standard, template, that's something that would limit our creativity, we will never go for it. But hey, this is not like limited. It just put in some guardrails to govern the content and to govern the brand appearance across of the different channels. Because we all want one thing, that if some email lands in an inbox, or if some banner pops up at a website, we want our customer to straight away recognize that, oh, this is this company. And if it looks different from day to day, or even from country to country, we might have a challenge with that. And this is why, like a template, this is something that's a step 1 in standardizing. It's a communication between marketing, between the AOR, to understand why has to be happening, and then templatizing the proper things. Whatever you think will be reusable or can be consistent across all the channels and the brands definitely has to be standardized. Then the agency briefing. So I loved one of our conversations that I had. Our client mentioned, like, we have 30 agencies and they're like a herd of cats, because they all know the best way to do things. They have their own way of doing things, and it's hard to communicate. And so, like, standardizing how you talk to the vendors is something that we highly recommend. And this relates to how we give them the tasks, how we communicate on the tasks execution, and how we then accept the work. Data is always important. And in order to understand what works and what doesn't work, we standardize the taxonomy, metadata, we come up with naming conventions so that we can track things and we can then identify the performance of each content piece within the channel. And lastly is the content ecosystem. With the different vendors and solution providers available, they all need to be functioning within one ecosystem. So what we think is that even, probably not a single technology solution can cover everything. So, and it's also pretty risky to put all of the eggs into one basket and then, God forbid, something happens, then we are in trouble. So integrating and sewing this whole different tools together so that the data flows consistently, that the content flows also in a smooth manner is something as a kind of a foundation to then further content transformation and moving to modular or automated content. So next is modular content. This is my favorite piece. I love modular content, not just because we do that for our clients, but also because I feel there is a value. And the biggest value is the reuse and the tracking. Again, being part of our business is still the agent. We love developing things, we love designing things, but in the world of today, when some email has to go out pretty fast, we cannot have weeks or months to complete stuff. And also with my, I have background in marketing, and I love to understand how my message works, how my content performs, and from the message perspective, I want to understand if what I say really resonates with my clients, and this is why it's important to track beyond the content piece. So I'm interested how my email works, what's the open rates, click-through rates, and everything like that. But I'm also interested which part of my email was most engaging. So what triggered the action and what triggered the conversion in the end. And this is why breaking down content into those modules and tracking each module separately is a solution to kind of more granular way how to track the engagement. And also a couple of steps to get there. First is identifying what is the module. And by this is actually, there are different ways of looking at this. In print industry, it has been around for, years and years. For digital, surprisingly, it's, I think this year it's quite a boom of modular content. And so what it is, how would you identify it? So we like to think of a module as an independent, meaningful chunk of information that can be approved on its own. And then when it's done, all of the modules become like molecules. So they consist of atoms, and the atom is a text, an image, and a video, any type of a graphic that are combined in those molecules, and out of the molecules we build a number of different things. So this is how we like to look at the module. When you define the module, and you know that this is something every module is something that has a meaning and has a purpose, and that means that a module can fit for some specific customer segment, or some audience. And that means that we need to change how we plan the content. And I believe here is like a biggest change for marketing teams. Because we are used to planning in like, you know, I send this amount of journeys, I need this amount of emails. But now with modular content, we actually need modules for different segments. And, and this is the change that needs to be communicated within the company. After content is kind of defined, we have templates from the previous stage, we have now modules, there is a standard, and now what? Like we have all of that stuff, what do we do with it? So now comes the place of the technology. The technology that actually enables putting together the modules, dragging them out of the digital asset management system in an automated way, and then assembling them within a channel into the final tactics. So now is the time to think about the authoring environment that can support that. And luckily, we happen to be the company that has this content authoring tool in place, integrated with Pharma that actually enables this process. But this is not the end. This is like, you know, building the piece out of the modules is, I would say, it's just the middle of the journey. The hard part is how we get that approved. And we know in the regulated environment, it's not like that easy to get things approved automatically, even if the content is built on the previously approved modules. But at least we can have some help for medical legal teams to get that approved. And one of the solutions that we came up with is the highlighting of the changes that have been done or have not been done to a module, so that when the expert would need to review the content, he will identify, like, here is what I have already approved, here is what I have not approved, this is like a non-modular piece, and in this way, reduce the time for the review and approval. From the data tracking part though, there is another point, and I was doubting like where to put this slide in the sequence, because this is actually important on the planning part, as well as then on the like content activation part. It's connecting the data from a module, from the meaning to the person that you want to send your content to. So combining the data from the customer segmentation, from marketing campaigns, to the data in the digital asset management system, so that then you kind of understand from like what you push out, is that how it performs. And then finally, well, this is not the last step though, the generation of actionable insights and working with the data. We need to understand, you know, there are some metrics that we do recommend for modular content. And it's about like the general flow, like how many modules does a company produce? How many of them actually get reused, in what channels they get reused, and also if it's like a global approach, if something that global created, can it be applied for US or for any other countries in the world? So we address multiple components, as like planning, execution, and continuous improvement based on the data. But there is a change, and to adopt this change, actually, without a proper strategy to change management, it's absolutely close to impossible to transform the content production. And the important thing is that it's not just about being aware of the change, but it's getting to the point where stakeholders actually want the change to stay. And I think this is the most important aspect of the change management approach. So creating that communication plan, the change management journey, to make sure that there is this commitment for this new approach to stay. And that also relates to what stakeholders we actually bring on board while we are working on those transformation projects. We saw cases when there was just IT or just marketing, and it's like, you know, looking at one issue just from one or two sides. And in some projects that we are in, sometimes MLR is like brought, like, or PRC teams are brought on stage just like very last moment. So, and you imagine the pushback that is given when they are like not onboarded from the day one. So thinking about the different stakeholders in the company that will be working in this transformative environment is very important. And my kind of advice is always get the medical legal team on board as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm not jealous. And like the final step is this transformative or automated content journey. So to be honest, there are very few companies that are in this stage or are fully in this stage or are happy with the way they are in this stage. Because it's not just about the change that is implemented in the company, but also it's about the data, how to teach those algorithms to make some suggestions, to recommend some content, to auto-assemble content. And also like the regulations, because we are in the environment when no matter what, the medical legal review wants to see the whole piece. So it's very hard to imagine the situation when they will trust some very smart artificial intelligence tool to kind of suggest something and send it out before a real person would actually dig very deep inside. So I think for now, working with the NASDAQ's action tools with a pinch of artificial intelligence is something that's definitely doable, but the human component of the process will still be in place, especially in the medical legal review. So this whole circle that you see here, like create, adjust, automate, is very similar to the like closed loop marketing approach, like understanding what works, what not works. But if the content is now broken down in much smaller pieces, if you understand why those pieces are created, whom they are targeted for, and where you use them, then you can do a much more granular way of then understanding like what was worth the investment, what was not worth the investment, and what to do in the future, like channel-wise, message-wise, and also, how that all performs. And with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So terrible.